passion problematic?
Passion leads us to make bad choices that we wouldn't otherwise make. Like, for instance, Mr. Land said in his thing yesterday that, like, he really wanted to be a jazz musician, and when he went to college, he just played jazz music all day, and he didn't really, like, think much about his future. And his mom was like, you need to be a teacher, like, a music teacher will get you, like, good money. And he was like, I like jazz.
I don't think it's necessarily bad choices as much as rash choices, because a lot of times our passion leads to something that we want to do immediately, so those choices tend to be done more eagerly than other choices.
Yeah, if you're kind of being blinded by like how great it's going to be when you like reach your passion or manifest your passion, then you're not going to think through what you're actually doing, and you can make some mistakes.
It also closes your mind off to other ideas or maybe other outlets for your passion. Kind of like what Pam was saying with Mr. Land not seeing the value in becoming a music teacher rather than being a professional performer.
But on the flip side, passion can be a good thing as well. It doesn't necessarily have to be problematic, because if you're passionate about your craft or your profession, then it might motivate you to strive for higher heights and accomplish things that you probably didn't think that you could accomplish beforehand.
Passion can be pretty great, but if you use the example of an artist, you like associate the term starving artist, and as much as what their work may be like great, or for the musician it could be some like almost like a symphony, but a lot of times it's hard for other people to admire what you're passionate about, so to make a living out of it, it's really difficult to like to be successful with what you're passionate about.
Well, it depends on what you're.
But like if you're looking
You're
at more of
passionate
the
about.
arts
Yeah.
section.
Yeah.
Like I can think of a few examples where people are incredibly passionate about like one aspect, and what happens is that certain elements of their life, and that's what all they immerse themselves in, and they don't end up as well rounded. They're mainly focused in it. Like I know two people that my mom works with who are incredibly smart people, but very hard to communicate with, and not the most pleasant to be around. But they can just do things.
Yeah, but if they're doing their passion, why would they want to be well-rounded?
Well, so I think passion is problematic to other people, but not necessarily to the person itself, because he's just absorbed into the passion, and he thinks he's doing great.
Yeah, like that.
Can we get like evidence as to why you think passion is problematic?
Can I give an example?
Yeah.
One thing I'd like to say, someone's really passionate about their work, vary what it is, but say for example you spend too much time working and then
Your
you
marriage
hit-
failed.
you don't have a family, or you go through
Well,
you go through
people-
life and you realize you've missed a part of it that you.
People are passionate enough to maybe give up their family, don't want it sometimes. Like they just want what their passion is.
Well, passion is both, it can be both irrational and self-centered. The best people you know are probably like these great philanthropists. They love doing things for others, they're selfless, and they work hard, and they're thinking outside themselves. Passion is often what you want to do. But if something happens because of that, like you love helping people, you're passionate about what you're doing, not what's happening.
Well, I'm not sure how exactly relevant this is, but I know that, especially with ancient Greek culture, what we're learning in art history is part of the reason why the Greeks dissuaded certain activities, like they dissuaded overeating and over drinking and much other things in excess, because too many things in excess was seen as a problem. And part of that is true, because if you do have your passion in over excess, you can't do other things. You become so single-minded that it's hard for you to function outside of whatever your passion may be.
They don't just have that in ancient Greek culture. I think it's in the Bible. I think it's considered gluttony.
Yeah, glut.
But
But that's mostly associated with eating.
It's like the
And that
idea of
usually-
balance in your life.
they usually
Like
which is
figuratively though.
Well,
What it is,
that's getting more into modern, but what they're talking about back then is just not doing too much of things that can end up bad, like eating and drinking.
Yeah, moderation is key in a lot of things, but if you consider this, like, if passion engulfs a person and they're all consumed by whatever they are passionate for, would it necessarily be problematic for society, like not society, that's a bad word, like maybe their community or their culture on a whole? Because say like those like mad geniuses that run around and people think they're loopy, but they're really passionate about their craft and they discover something great. That might be a huge breakthrough for the people that come after them. Would that be problematic per se?
I actually have an example that can go pretty well with that. My brother, he plays hockey really rigorously, and he really wanted to play D1 hockey in college. And the average age for a freshman D1 hockey player, it's like 22. And so he took a gap year, which a lot of people saw as problematic, but he was going after his passion so that he could be seen more, scouted more, and now he's actually playing D1 hockey for college. And I mean, so that passion kind of isn't as problematic, but during his gap year, a lot of people didn't accept the choices he made and were like, why aren't you in college? You should be studying, you should be taking classes. And he had a really rigorous schedule. He still had to practice hockey, he worked for my dad. So that passion, as much as it kind of detoured, I feel like the passionate people are more driven towards their goal, even if it sometimes takes them off course for a little bit, but they're the most driven people.
I think it's often, like, I think that a lot of people are putting passion in a negative light, which kind of, like, bothers me, because, like, I consider myself a pretty passionate person, especially about, like, certain things, like what I'm writing my integrated paper about. And, like, I don't think that that's, like, a bad thing. I think passion, most of the time, in my opinion, is actually a very good thing, because
we
it
didn't
motivates
say
you.
we didn't
Yeah.
say most of the time passion was bad. And we didn't say it couldn't be good at all. We're just saying that the times when it is bad, why is it bad?
I mean, I just, like, I see it, like, I don't know. I don't agree with the question. That's the issue. Like, I just don't agree.
Well,
like, I
but
think,
here's the
The
thing.
question makes a claim that I don't know if I can get behind.
yes.
No, but it's like you have to admit that if you're passionate about something, you will encounter hardships, right? And even if you strive to move past them, you will encounter hardships. And I think this question is addressing like, why did you encounter these hardships?
I
Is
don't-
it because of your passion?
Well,
If
that,
you-
that's that's the question that I hate more because, of course, you, like, is the other option to just give up then? Like, well, that can't be. That
I
cannot
think,
be
I
what
think
you
another
Actually-
angle that we're not
well-
approaching is that what happens if you are passionate about something and then you're no longer able to do it. That's
Oh.
problematic.
And those are the most miserable people.
Well,
Yeah,
also,
they are.
Yeah.
but think about it. You don't necessarily have to give up on your passion. Both Mr. Land and Mr. Simon both really like music, and they both were extremely passionate about it. However, they came to realize as they grew up that it wasn't practical for them to pursue one type of music. It just wasn't going to work out
Still,
in the type of lifestyles they wanted. However, they found a different outlet for doing it. They found teaching music. They're still working in their craft, just in a slightly different environment.
let me
Yeah.
give-
But
let me
those
give
are
you
like
an-
the success stories.
Let
of
me give you an
passion.
example. Say, for example, a D1 football player gets an injury and can no longer walk, and he was hoping to go pro. That would be an example of passion being problematic.
Well,
How
like
does that
Bojack.
fit with what Mara was just saying?
You could go coach.
Like you can, like Mara said, you can have different outlets for that particular passion. And you can basically, instead of being single-minded and stubborn in what you want, you can try to like branch out, like how Mr. Land and Mr. Simon did. And not to mention, like, I don't think people are necessarily limited to only one passion per se. Like, you can be passionate about more than one subject, more than one type of thing. And while you might be devastated, like, if you were a D1 player and you can't walk, right? Maybe he can channel that into activism for people like him or something like that.
I don't think that's what, like, well, I don't know. When I was listening to Mr. Land, it came to me that he discovered that teaching music was his passion. It wasn't like a branch off.
It wasn't.
It was like he
problematic.
couldn't do
Yeah.
his passion, so now I'm gonna teach instead.
Yeah, he was like, oh, this is
He had the
fantastic.
aha
I want to
moment.
do this now. So, but Adam's situation is saying, hey, this is fantastic, and I can never do it again.
I think as people, because I mean, it's not realistic to, I don't know, people change, life circumstances change, and I think that your passions should evolve with the way that you do. Like the guy who broke his leg or something, he should, I don't know. I think if his passion was playing the sport, like just the literal action of playing the sport, well then maybe his passion could evolve to playing another sport like wheelchair basketball or
Wheelchair.
I didn't hear what he said, but make that a thing. Or
I'd
if
like to
his
see how picking
passion
goes.
if his passion was the sport of football itself, then he could become a football coach. I think I don't know. I feel like if
Yeah,
you
but-
have a passion for
yeah, I
something,
feel like-
it's
Well, like
not
they
the
said you had to diversify your craft to kind of maintain
yeah.
your satisfaction.
In order to fully, I feel like if you have a passion for something, it can't be limited. In this case of football, it can't be limited to just running on a field and playing football. It has to be like the whole thing. Like if you have something as deep as a passion, it can't be for something so
It's
limited.
broader
It
I
has
think
to be.
I think
Yeah,
that
it has
comes
to
back.
be like for the whole
I
sport.
think that comes back to what Harry was saying about being well-rounded. I think as passionate people, and as like I think most people out there have a passion. I bet most people, most of you consider yourself to have a passion. You have to be well-rounded. You know, I know I want to work for the FDA. Sure, GCS could just give me classes that would make me end up there, and I'd be fine. But I have to get a well-rounded education in case that doesn't happen, or in case so that I can broaden my horizons and I understand more perspectives.
Can you share with the classes? By FDA, do you mean
Food and Drug Administration. So like, I already know that. My passion is studying foodborne disease and figuring out how we can stop it. But here I am singing an English class. Why? Because I'm learning to write a paper about foodborne disease. Because I'm learning to look at things different ways and learning other passions. That's not my only passion. I've learned other passions from trying to be a well-rounded person, from having well-roundedness forced upon me.
But as much as you can be well-rounded, do those other passions, are they like as satisfying as that one
Yes.
main passion you have?
Yes.
Because a lot of times for other people,
Yeah.
like if you go those other routes, something may be like satisfying, but it's not nearly as satisfying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of people lock onto like a singular passion, and I think that's when it starts to get problematic.
Well, I think I got
It kind of reminds me of like The Great Gatsby, when he like chased after
Monomaniacal?
That's like
one
obsession.
thing, and so when it didn't live up to his passion, like he had nothing else. And so I think it's important to either like keep a bunch of different passions or diversify your like passion portfolio. I guess.
Like that.
But
So that if something like burns out, like similar to stock, so that all your eggs are in one basket.
But that's
Well,
Well, I-
we're
that's-
thinking
that's
of
sort
like
the playoff with
Captain Ahab,
That's what I was
monomaniacal
gonna say.
passion, when a lot of people they do have more than one thing. We're not all just hunting the one
Yeah,
thing.
that's what I'm saying. I'm saying once you have that one, that's when it starts to become
Yeah, but
problematic.
that's also that's the trade-off, because there's people who are so deeply immersed in a passion that society can reap the benefits of that. Say, for example, people who discover new things, or people who work in institutes of
Yeah.
technology.
Yeah, there's
Yeah,
like
it's not
the
always
really
problematic,
there's
but
the
I
really thin line between like being really successful with one passion and failing miserably.
Yeah, but can we be satisfied with one passion? I don't know if we like.
I mean, if you
fully
look at
can.
athletes, it's
Well,
Yeah, they're not. That's not the only thing they do.
But,
They do that a
like-
lot. Everyone has a career. Like Mr. Land and Mr. Simon said. They said, like they couldn't just do music. They knew they wanted a family.
Like-
They knew they wanted other things. So, I don't think one passion can fully satisfy any person
Yeah, like
unless it's
going off the whole Mr. Land example, for those of you who know him, you know that he cooks really good barbecue.
Yep.
That's another passion of his, that like he loves to cook like soul food and barbecue. And I feel like that is also like how Chris was saying, you can't have all your eggs in one basket. Like he's not only immersed himself in music, he's also branching out and trying different things so that he can find satisfaction in different sources when, say, one does not give him the satisfaction that it used to or that he expected.
We could also try approaching the passion that you have from a different way, like kind of what the Dr. Feynman guy was doing when he got very tired of having to constantly do all this work that was very strict and regimented, and he just started doing it for the sake of doing it and rekindling his passion through that way. I think that might be a way that passion, it can seem problematic because you don't know how to find that alternative route, but when you do, it becomes better.
Well, there's some people who can't find that alternative.
But I feel like that example, it's kind of a bad one because for that, like his passion kind of burned out and he didn't do anything because he only had that one passion of always experimenting. And when he got back to it, sure, he was successful and he won the Nobel Peace Prize, but
That's a trade-off.
whatever one it was. But like, he only had that one passion. He might have had other side passions, but that one was what caused him to go into that almost comatose state where he didn't do anything.
Well,
I think
could you?
A great example of this would be Vincent van Gogh. He has wonderful paintings, but if you did a little bit of research and were in the middle school, he was a complete nutbag. And when he tried to have relations with other people, particularly women, he was crazy. He ended up cutting off one of his ears as a symbol of being that.
That's love.
Yeah.
Think about it. Think of all the people who are really, really amazingly good at something. What have they given up to be that good?
Well,
A good example would be like a football, like a D1 football player.
I mean, I
Back
think
to the football player.
I said this
Same example.
Like
We see it as-
Olympians who like they're pulled from school at a really young age to like train their whole life to be a really good gymnast or something, and then they lose that kind of like the social experiences of childhood. And so there's always trade-offs because we only have so much time.
We see it as giving up because we all have multiple things that we love. But if you had one thing that actually did satisfy you, then wouldn't you want to give as much time as you had to that one thing?
Yeah.
I don't
agree.
think so.
I
Then
agree.
you
No.
burn it out. He
Can you-
talked about burnout.
Like,
No, I-
But
like a gymnast, especially probably for women. Like I'm not a specialist on this, but like I know like there's a peak that you hit. Like that's why many of the girls in the Olympics are only like between ages like 18 and like 13. And once you like hit it,
Oh my god.
The limit on
Well, we get your point. We get your
16.
point. Yeah.
I don't know. I think that everyone that I know and everyone that I can think of who like had that one passion, you know, those mad scientists that are like, all I want to do is chemistry all day long. What they may be happy at the time. I think when a lot of those one passion people look back, they're very dissatisfied. Like they're very sad because they realize there it might have been a smaller passion. Maybe a smaller passion is running, and maybe that really is much smaller than chemistry, but they got no time to run. They got no time to have a family, to have a wife, to have children, to have whatever it is that they want. Maybe that's not what they want, but they might want, I don't know, a store that they want to
It's
have.
not-
Another
I don't-
person who did that, Harry, you got to talk.
Thank you. Thank you. I don't think that's true at all. I think, in our opinions, it might be sad, but for them, when they look back, they will be proud. They will be proud of what they did. Like yesterday, when I was watching Mr. Simon, and he was really nervous actually during his speech. And but once he started playing the music, and he was just in the zone, and even though we didn't even notice like how amazing that music was, but he was just like, oh God, yes. And also another example, in our school there's some musical prodigies. I don't want to mention any names, but let's just make one up. Let's call him Luke. If Luke is a really good violinist, and he's kind of or if he's kind of socially awkward, like on a daily basis, but once he got on the stage, once he started performing, the whole thing was just we're in the zone and he's more in the zone, and he's really feeling his true passion. And I think in one day, even though he stops playing violin, when he looks back, he will be proud of himself, and he will never regret that he chose this passion that he
Well,
really.
That's
But
the
say
thing
he
about
loses
that.
the ability.
If he's only comfortable doing his own passions, that becomes problematic because when it comes to doing other stuff, he'll feel.
But other stuff doesn't feel as good.
But
Why
you-
have a
you
wife?
to-
Why have kids? Why learn how to talk to
You have to
people
feel
if it
comfortable.
doesn't feel nearly as good as the
It doesn't
thing
have to
that
feel
I
good.
did?
You have to be like comfortable with doing it.
Why?
I think that
But
depends.
I think
Let's think about it, because you bring up a really interesting point. If it's that good, it feels that good, and the whole world disappears, and like you say, in the zone, I think that's an interesting phrase, you're in the zone, then how much do these other things matter? And then the next part is longevity.
Well,
Well, here's-
18,
I think
40, 70, 90.
I think
Pam
the
had
rest
a
of
good
the world
point.
matters.
Where she said, where do you want to look back and say like I didn't do all these things, like I missed out on all this, and like the first thing that came to mind was Achilles. He's a pretty passionate guy.
Chose to die young.
Yeah, and he chose to be a warrior and be famous, and then when Odysseus went and talked, Odysseus went and talked to him in the underworld, he was not happy about it. He was like, I would have rather, I didn't do anything. Like I just did this one thing, and that's it.
Also, you can't know what you've never experienced. Like, you can say, oh, I don't want that now, but I mean, how would you know if you've never even had a chance to see what it was like? You're diminishing your options in the future at such a young age because you think that this one thing is good, but how can you possibly know that other things aren't just as good or maybe even better?
I
She answered your question, Harry.
I don't remember I had any questions.
Well, but I'm sorry, but just a quick like thought I guess to throw out there. When you say in the zone, like you can be up on stage, you can feel like you're on top of the world, but after you get like off stage, the world's problems will come rushing back to you. And while you still have the memory of that euphoria you felt on stage giving a performance, wouldn't you also feel the brunt of like every other issue? Like say you are this imaginary Luke and you have social anxiety, then if you do have to interact with other people, which you have to do once you are an adult, there's really no way about it, then wouldn't that cause you pain? Wouldn't that cause you problems eventually?
Yeah, but
like
you have
inconvenience?
You have to measure the pain against like the joy of like achieving your mastery.
And
Right?
also,
I'll
for
agree with
some
Nancy.
people it's not worth it. Some people I think it is.
But even if it is worth it, you can't deny that that would be
Yeah.
a problem.
No, but if the
I totally-
euphoria lasts
Yeah, but
long
it-
enough, it can like kind of mask all of the weight
Yeah,
of other
and
things, and if it's like satisfying
you
enough,
might
then
you
it
might
doesn't
regret it
matter.
even more if you just never put in the work to become that great. Like, so maybe he becomes a more well-rounded individual and can deal in good like social situations and stuff. But he'll always he could always regret that he never became a
Yeah,
master.
for purposes of this argument, there's ways around social interaction.
And
There's certain
also-
jobs
Wait,
that you can
but there's also a money thing. Like when Mr. Huddins presented his like, what if like your passion like really is like worth it? What about like the fact that the world's still gonna judge you, even if you never have a social interaction?
Or like
And-
eat food.
Like,
That one.
I mean, yes, that
Food
is
is
social
important.
interaction. Let's say
Like
you
a
get
world
fed
judging.
through a little slot in your door, like a mail slot, and you like never have a social interaction again. You're an agoraphobe and you never leave your house. You still, in order to get that food in the mail slot, you need ka-ching,
Say
ka-ching.
that louder, Chris.
Emily Dickinson.
Emily Dickinson.
Isn't she a
Yeah.
perfect example of this?
But like, you
But
still
she
need
had, like,
money to
support.
survive.
Didn't she?
Her family was pretty well off.
You wanna come out of the room? No.
Exactly. She had people to ask her to get out of the room and slide food under the
You know what she did?
So-
she wrote it
She didn't
down.
talk
Go
to
out of
anyone,
the
but
room.
she wrote.
Wait, so is passion problematic if you don't have support along the way when you're trying to master it? Or is it like you don't need anyone because you're just so focused on your goal?
That makes it
Well, even if you do like have support, like even if you do have support and you're pursuing your passion, ultimately, how do you know that that support's going to be perpetual? Like you could
Well,
lose
it
it at
doesn't
any
need to be.
point.
Like Mr. Land and Mr. Simon each had someone to like help them find their way with music. Like Mr. Land had his mom, and Mr. Simon had his 7th grade service teacher, and they each like helped him out. But I imagine they're not always helping him now.
But those are the lucky cases when they become self-sufficient. Say Emily Dickinson, you throw her out into a house on her own, and I don't think she can really last that long.
Well, she didn't really get support for her craft. She got support for
She paid.
Well, she.
One thing-
What I mean by
One
support
thing
is
I
like
had, all
covering
her
your basic necessities.
Her poems, like people, like she just left them in her room.
yeah. Like if she had
Like,
someone,
She wasn't
if she-
doing them for anybody else. She's doing them because it was her passion.
Yeah.
What satisfied
Had
her,
someone
and it didn't
had
matter
someone
if it
published them
satisfied
for
other
her,
people.
which would not have been great. I don't know if she would have minded or not. I don't know who she is.
She wanted them to be burned.
Good.
Yeah.
And her family member disobeyed her dying wishes and published them.
That's messed up.
She published a
This
few
is
poems during her
really
lifetime
good.
as well.
It's support. They didn't uphold an obligation, and
I think that Emily
X years
Dickinson.
later, here I am.
I think that Emily Dickinson is a really out there example, and I don't think that like most people are like that. And touching on like Nancy's or like whoever asked like what happens when that person can't be there forever, I think it kind of develops into different people. Like I think right now, like I said, like I'm really interested in foodborne disease. Like my dad talks to me about that all the time because he knows I'm interested and he wants to keep me like thinking and motivated. But when I go to college, it'll be my professors who are asking me about it, or maybe one of my friends. There's always to be someone there, and it might be the one person. No one wants to talk to me about E. coli. My dad's the only one who talks
We're
to me
not
about
talking
it.
about like supporting your passion. We're talking about like supporting your basic needs as a human, like
Yeah.
eating, making money.
Like Emily Dickinson didn't need someone there to be like, oh, you keep writing, because she did that all on her own.
You can do it.
She just needed
Keep
to do.
living.
How does this connect to what Mr. Land and Mr. Simon were talking about? Because is music a solitary passion?
can be.
Well, it can be,
Well, a lot of
but
them
generally
talk,
you
a lot
have an
of them
audience.
Talked about, like,
It's
or
about-
both of them talked about how much they liked
Playing
playing
for-
with other people.
Or for
Yeah,
other
it depends on
people.
the person.
Yeah.
There's some people who just get.
Because you can do it both,
playing.
but it tends to sound a lot better. People go to the symphony for a reason. I mean,
Okay.
they also see individual artists, but like instruments playing together sounds a
Well,
lot better
even seeing
than
an
just
individual artist is not
So
a solo activity. That's
You
like,
have an audience.
Yeah.
would
Yeah,
it
you
help
have an
then
audience.
in whatever passion you're pursuing to be surrounded by people who also sharing your passion are willing to encourage and help you, and so you all will eventually help each other reach your end goal?
Well, that's a really idealistic view. What if this community is not supporting and instead actually is very cutthroat and tries to ruin each other so that they can get ahead?
Then
Yeah.
wouldn't that be very problematic to have that passion?
I
But
think
what
it
if
depends
no
on
one-
I think it depends on the person. Like, let's just use myself as an example. If I loved art and I went to an art school and everybody's like, yes, Toyin, you go paint that picture, and they were just so supportive, I would be like, yes. But if I love art and I went to a math school and nobody could care less about art, it doesn't necessarily mean I'm just gonna fall into a deep despair. I think it depends on the person. I mean, some people react better to having the support of others, and some people don't need it as much.
Yeah, but
I guess.
oh wait.
I mean, what I was gonna ask, like, is like, what if no one what if like no one feels the same passion as it? Like I said, like I have support for my passion, but I've never met anyone else who says yes, I love studying E. coli. Like that's weird.
But for you, would you stop being passionate about it if other people didn't talk to you about it? Wouldn't you still go research it on your own? Do you?
Yeah, but I'm much more driven after my dad throws out a what was the effect of that?
Well, I kind of
But what
force-
if you came up with that question on your own and you asked yourself that?
It
Like,
might even
with-
be better for you.
with
You
the
might,
things I'm
you
passionate
might
at,
feel more proud about it.
like,
Maybe
it-
your dad is hurting.
It took me a while to realize that the things that I'm passionate at, I look at, and like other than just like glancing away, like I don't have time for this. I'm like really fixated on figuring out. I'm just like, why can I not get this? And I'll spend copious amounts of time trying to figure it out, even if I don't get it. And eventually, I just have to call it a quits because of other things.
Well, I mean, sort
Those
of.
damn other things that you focus on this one passion.
Well,
It's
that's
not
not.
passion. It's more like a
Fixation?
passion doesn't have to necessarily be like something you like. It's something you're fixated in.
Yeah, fixation
Yeah,
or
this doesn't
obsession
mean
even.
one thing either. This could mean like
Just passion in
just
general.
passion about anything you ever do ever,
Well,
anytime.
I
So
mean-
like we're all saying like, well, when you have one singular passion and you
Being
do
neat.
it, then
It's
it
not
ruins your
really
life. But like just being too passionate of a guy could
Like being a neat freak, sort of.
or, I don't know.
I mean, just
no.
being passionate. Like there are people who are just. There are people who are just more strongly passionate. I'm like one of them. I just like everything I see. Like that's part of why this is such a hard integrative. It's a hard class for me because every piece I read, I have an opinion on. I have thoughts, and I'm like one of those people who immediately is like, okay, this is how I feel about it. I have so many feelings, and like I think that this feelings, that
Isn't that what
emotion.
integrative is supposed to do?
So,
Well,
and what's the
You
cost?
Should be having these.
I
What
think-
price do you pay for that action?
People think I'm nuts. Mainly, like people have like a lot
Oh,
of
no.
people legitimately think that I'm too emotional or I'm crazy.
Who cares? We're all
Like-
wrong.
Why does it
I'm
matter what other
serious.
people think?
Who cares what other people
Oh,
think?
I think it definitely matters. At least to me, it definitely matters what other people think.
I think it depends on the group of people. Like for Pam's example, like if I don't know, if this entire class of people thought I was crazy, I guess I would kind of care, but not so much. But if my entire family at home thought I was crazy, then I would be like, oh my god, there's something wrong with me. Take me to like a mental asylum, like
You should-
help me.
You should surround
So-
the people you should care about what they think of you should be people you trust are looking out for the better of you and
Yeah,
are
and
interested
not
in
just
saying
like
things.
Well, the funny thing is that I know some people don't agree with, like, for my example, you don't like art at all. You made that perfectly clear, but I'll still talk with people about it and sort of more or less force my opinions on you people. Sorry, I must apologize. Okay, don't give me that. Anyway, but it's like, I don't mind that so much because I know if I can get at least one person to hear me out and they'll be just as impassioned about what I'm talking about as much as I am, then to me, I've done right to what I'm trying to represent. I don't care if 100 people, so long as one person is willing to listen, it's fine.
Well, then you're gonna have a great time in college when you find a bunch of people.
I think passion is proportional to this deduction you made on yourself, deduction of identities. if you're a little bit passionate about something, you may not care what the people in the classroom think about you, but you may care what your parents think about you. But when you get a little bit more passionate into that, you don't care what your parents think about you, and you only need one person maybe to hear you. But when you get to a little bit more, you only need yourself, and at that point you already take out all your identities and you're just yourself.
I completely agree with Harry. Like, it does have influence on what other people think, but it gets to a point where you only care about, like, you don't care like what other outside people think about your passion.
I was
So
just
is
saying,
Ahab.
My first year teaching here at GCS, the headmaster came up. I was at lunch with one of my co-workers, and he came up and he was talking about the class that he taught. And at one point he said something that just stuck in my head. He said, "I don't care if the students are having any fun. I think this is great material." Right? And isn't that the worst possible thing a teacher could say? I don't care if you guys learn anything because I think this is cool.
Good.
Now, is it that, and does that make him a bad teacher?
Well,
It makes him like an inconsiderate teacher.
Inconsiderate.
Well, they gotta be there.
I don't think it makes.
Me by the blood.
Well, I mean, if the students aren't learning anything, that's kind of his job to
Yeah.
teach. So if he's not actually teaching, then I think he's a
Doesn't
bad
make
Well,
teacher.
what if he's just performing his passion, and a few of the students will be like, "Wow, awesome! I want to be like that guy," or "That's how one shows
well, if
passion."
you're
There's people
well,
who
if you're a really good, I'm sorry. If you're a really good teacher, but your passion should be, my kids are learning and my students are loving this material I'm teaching them. But if you're just simply focusing on the material, you probably
Yeah.
should be a, I don't know, researcher on this kind of topic.
Well, maybe,
No,
Yeah.
I hate to do this, but maybe that's why Dr. Ronto doesn't teach Intro to Bio anymore. And he teaches the specialized
you remember
classes.
that?
Yeah, because like
He's
I
"Are
had a
you
great
kids retarded?
Yeah. I had a great time. I loved it, but like some people were not science or bio guys, and they hated it. But he was like, "This is awesome, love this," and we were like,
I thought it
How
was
about that?
fun.
Well, yeah.
So is that one of the problems with passion? Is that if people don't share it, they're like,
Yeah,
Either, yeah.
It's intense.
Yeah, but
I like how
"No,
there's a
just
word
smite
for
anyone who
passion.
doesn't like it."
Yeah.
Smite.
We're all wrong.
Shun the non-believers.
No, but that's
They're
this,
unbelievers.
this also happens with like, you guys are gonna guess who I'm talking about in the next few seconds, but with certain people who like books and they like force upon you like what they like and what their opinions are on this. Like, I know this is a good example. I know how you probably had a huge role in choosing some reading book, and when you open your computer, you have a Kurt Vonnegut quote up there. Another example would be Mr. Madsen and Moby Dick.
Oh,
Say
okay.
it.
Wait, but
So what's your point?
okay, so
"So what's your point?"
My point is like, passion is gonna, no matter what, if you have some form of basic human interaction, your passion is gonna get pushed on other people if it becomes so.
Especially when
Yeah.
your job is
Huge part
to
of
push
you.
it onto other people.
well, but here's the
Yeah.
thing, like,
You're gonna pay me to
Wait.
talk about my passion? Ka-ching.
but
Well,
I
it's like passion. When you're talking to someone about it, it's almost like you love your passion so much. It's almost hard for you to understand why other people don't find it so interesting. So passion, it kind of blinds you a little bit. That you know so much about it and you love it so much that when you talk, you become inconsiderate to other people, and it doesn't destroy your relationships. It just makes it a little weird.
I think that would depend on the individual though, because you might be really passionate about, say, ping pong, but if you have a conversation about ping pong, you might not be that inconsiderate, snobby jerk who is just like, I'm better than you. Then you can be considerate, you can basically educate the other person if they're interested, and if not, you can try to switch to another topic.
yeah, but I mean, I think that's part where the consideration comes in. Switching to another topic. Why I don't talk to you about E. coli is because none of you are interested in hearing me talk about it.
Yeah, but eventually you'll find people who are.
And
Yeah.
then I will talk to this people, and that's fine. But until then, I need to realize that you guys don't want to hear about it, and that I should talk to Tessa instead about, I don't know, what music or something.
Ping pong.
And I should talk to Nancy
Well,
instead
why-
about diabetes because we had a weird conversation about it the other day and it was really interesting.
Well, but
why isn't
okay.
Tessa talking to you about E. coli? Why is it gotta be a Tessa?
Because
Why am I
I'm
not
being a
considered
considerate
few?
person, like I'm being a considerate person and I'm thinking about my social skills and I'm thinking about the fact that no
Okay,
one wants to
is
hear
it better
it.
to talk about something that neither of you want to talk about, or to just
Find a
like-
shared common
Wait, no.
interest.
This happened to me and Adam the other day.
Adam,
Me and Carmen are really into like a series. Of
That's
books
ending soon.
That's ending soon.
It's
And
Oh, yeah.
I was like, she sent me a link while I was with Adam in the car, and I don't want to talk to anyone about it. It's
Well, I was
pretty
driving,
dirty.
so you should be talking.
But Adam looks over and he sees it, and he's like, "Oh, is that Rin?" And my mind exploded because he's interested in it too, and like.
I know that feels.
Yeah.
When you
so-
find a fellow person who knows
So
what you're
where
talking
did
about.
I'm saying like, why should you not try and push your passion onto other people? You
That's
never
not
know
really
what.
Yeah, but
Well,
if
no,
they-
you don't try
if
to
they
push it.
reject
That's not my passion.
Then
Well,
Why?
I
Yeah,
think
well,
you
that's
should-
not my
Yeah,
passion.
Give 'em a little
reject it.
taste.
Wait,
If
it's
they
not
like
your
it,
passion,
give
if
it.
you're passionate about it, you like it.
If they reject it, then you're like
I
overbearing.
don't know.
Talking
And you're that one
Studying-
person that always talks about the
Wait.
same thing.
Would you
Guys.
passionate?
Before I explode, like, does anyone from AP Lit remember this packet on the uses of a liberal education? This,
Yeah.
what's his face? Mark
Oh,
Edmondson guy,
oh,
his entire complaint in this packet is that students nowadays are not passionate enough. And,
That's all the colleges say is like, we want a student with a passion.
yeah.
And
What's
then-
your
but then
passion?
they
Like,
stick
passion
you in
this,
this-
passion that.
Then they stick you in this level of education. Like I hate the colleges. Cannot stand the colleges that will not let me declare my major now. I am ready to sit down and check off a box and
Yeah,
have
but why do you need to? Why do you have to share that with them? Why can't you just give it to yourself?
Yeah.
because
I
you
am
have
on
to
the-
study it so you can get better.
I am on the
Yeah, but you don't have
exact
to check off.
opposite
You,
end
you
of
can
that
pick your
argument.
classes, but you don't have to.
That's
like,
the one
check
thing I
off
don't
the-
like because you pretty much have your career in a vice if you do that. You can't change anything.
Yeah. You
Like
you don't know.
nowadays,
like, if you get
they
to
want you
class.
to like, what are you gonna do when you grow up? How many years you're gonna go to school? How many children you're gonna have?
I feel like that's more
What's the point?
considerate. Like, no, I feel like it's more considerate of colleges to not have you declare a major because maybe you want
Yeah.
to change it. Maybe you
No, I mean
change
I
your
think
mind.
that's fine to check undeclared, but like what I'm talking about is that like some of my schools, I think two of my schools said you cannot declare a major until sophomore year. And I'm like, I'm already someone who knows where I want to go. I don't
But it
want to
could
have to take
change.
a
It
like.
could change.
Here's
If
the
you-
thing. If you are still passionate about it come sophomore year, you can always just declare it then, right? You don't necessarily have to say straight up, this is what I want to do. If you know it to yourself, then
You might as
Have
well
you
keep your passion
you
to
might as
yourself.
well
GCS?
expose. You might as well expose yourself to other potential passions.
That
because
too.
You might find
Ex-
something that.
Exactly.
Why-
If you get the
Dr. Martin does a
opportunity, why
perfect
not?
example of
Find
this.
yourself
Band
your
trip.
equal.
Marathon
Equal.
runners have 5 minute splits.
Well, the thing is that I mean I've personally experienced this as well. You may be really interested in what you're studying now, but you don't know what you can learn at the colleges or be influenced by the other people that may change the path that you're going on. Like for instance, I was at first, if you asked me this question maybe last year, so I would tell you I want to study art history. Now I'm not so sure. I like so many other things now that it's hard for me to immediately declare what I want to do. So it's more along the lines of you can't simply say, especially at the age we're at now, we're in a place where we're all growing so much and changing that it's almost impossible to say if our mindset is going to be same as it is now as it will be in like
Pam,
But
they
what-
they don't want you to become the person who gets burned out from chasing one thing and then looks back on it and what like you were talking
They
about.
wanna
You're like
avoid
they look
Achilles.
back on it and they regret that they didn't become well rounded. That's the exact type of person. they're
But what
trying to
about the
present
things
for
like
that.
I see your point of like being locked into like this thing, but like what about the things that I definitely know I don't want to be or don't want to do, and I'm
well,
still
no
gonna
one's
be
forcing
required
you
to
to
do them.
necessarily do it.
No, but they are because they're saying, oh, you have to take 3 years of math and 2 years language and 1 year English, and I'm like, what if I really just don't want to do math? Like, I mean, that actually gets down to a lot of it. I hate math. I would be happy to end my senior math class and never touch another one.
It might have
Math will
practical
transcend
uses.
the world.
Because
You need that.
you're still
Yeah.
gonna
Practical
need to know
uses.
how
Some
to
things you
do
always
square
need to
roots,
know.
and
Yeah.
you're still gonna
You
need
need
to know
to
how
know
to
how to
make
do
papers.
algebra to get a more basic understanding of the world.
Okay, I have a quick question about I don't know, when this is like way back in the conversation, but somebody just brought it up again and I have a question about it. About the whole thing about burning out from your passion. I don't know if that necessarily comes with doing it too much or just the fact that you lose the feeling that comes with it. And that, I don't know. I feel like when somebody has a passion, it's not about the little thing that they're doing, it's just that feeling of, I guess, satisfaction that comes with it. So do you think that when somebody, I don't know, just, how am I gonna say this? When somebody gets burned out, do you think it's just because simply they've been doing it so long, or just because they lost the satisfaction, or do you think they lost satisfaction because they were doing it too long, or like, I don't know, just the whole idea of being burned out.
Why
I'm still
do people
kind of
burn
I
out?
think burnout comes
iffy
from
thinking about it.
this is what I've seen is that when you're able to do something at such a really good rate, and then you slowly start to fall behind that, you sort of have burnout because you can no longer perform or do
Yeah,
what
like,
you used to do it.
You can't meet your
You
expectations.
can't meet what you previously were.
I've noticed that people burn out. You always want to chase your passion. You want to chase your dreams. People find a spot in their passion and they stay there, and they're kind of happy there, but they don't move forward.
But what
And-
about?
well,
I'm sorry. Example is writer's block. Like, say you're really passionate about writing, right? But then you develop writer's block. Like, would that necessarily be them just staying at one point in their career, or is it something else?
Actually, I don't necessarily disagree with what's being said, but I saw this really interesting string of images once where they had this guy who was really interested, who really loved walking animals, and he started developing it and doing it more efficiently and walking more. However, he lost sight of what originally he was pursuing when he figured out that he could do it in this way. And I think that's kind of similar to what's going on with passion. They lose sight of what they originally found so enjoyable about their passion because they've been pursuing it and trying to make it more efficient and
I think
better.
another way to like kind of burn out of your passion is like if you hit that peak and then it's hard to improve anymore. If you think about like Michael Jordan, he played in the NBA for a really long time. He became like one of the best basketball players ever, and then right at the peak of his career, he retired and switched to play baseball, which he was not that good at. It was kind of a disaster. But he was the all-time greatest, and most people would think, well, if I was that good at basketball, I would just want to play basketball all the time. But he got tired. Like the fire inside him to be better kind of died once he
Had been the best.
yeah, once he became the best. And so like sometimes people burn out just because they reach the point where they can't make themselves better.
I think I know a person.
He did come back, but
Another
feeling sport.
Get to?
yeah.
Yeah, another person who did that was Chris Moxley. And in period 7 chess, like, he was better than everybody, and then after a while he was like, this is kind of boring, and he didn't want to play for a while. And now he's back. I don't know why. I didn't bring that up just to laugh, I'm serious, like, there was-
I'm
there
trying
was-
to develop a
Could be for the
connection
money,
here.
Right, I mean, in the case of Michael Jordan, right?
Yeah.
Or it could be
We're
for
not
the
gambling.
glory in the case of Mr. Moxley here.
Yeah, I think that can kind of tie in, like, your motivation for pursuing your passion can change. I think that that's also where people sometimes get started to get burned out. Like, right now, like, I'm studying what I want to study because I'm interested in it and because I just want to learn about it. But in 10 years when I'm working for the FDA and I'm getting paid to find a cure for E. coli, and that's my main focus is finding the cure so I can get the $1 million, like, I'm not going to be naturally interested anymore, and that's where I'm going to start to burn out, I think.
So do you think you would?
Like, it's where where your incentive for the passion kind of, like, goes off track.
There's also
Well-
some things like when people are so passionate in a thing and they hit like a speed bump, and then when they get back to doing it, they just can't do it. One example would probably be one of the greatest golfers right now, Tiger Woods. He was really good for a period of time and was just winning major after major, and then he had the little mix-up with, dad time, cheating on his wife 8 times,
A lot of knee
8
injuries.
times.
a lot of knee
That's
injuries
only
and
the
back
8 we know.
injuries, and he sort of just like completely fizzled out.
Well, but here's the thing. Like, who's
I
to
don't
know
think
that
he
his
lost his
motivation might not have changed?
Maybe
Like,
just
Stop
his
playing
success
with
is not as
Yeah, I don't think he lost his passion. I just think the combination of injuries and not playing for a year.
good. And maybe it's all the negative press.
Every time I feel like my brain just shuts down.